Okay, so in my personal classroom right now, it is a very diverse group of students. I'm going to focus just on my freshman classes, which is just 3 periods, and it's very, very, very diverse. A lot of interracial students, not as many Hispanics, no Asians, and I would say it's about 50 or maybe 60-40 for the percentages that are left, 60% white, 40% black, that is left as far as the populations that I've already included. And what I can say is that I do think that there are already stereotypes made out for those students. Not necessarily that the teachers have already decided, oh, okay, you're going to do this or you're going to do that, as much as the students already have it in their mind coming into their freshman year as to what they're going to amount to. And a lot of times um, it is sometimes culturally biased. However, for the classroom that I'm in, a lot of times it's more so the situation where my grandfather, great grandfather, great great grandfather were all farmers, so I'm going to be a farmer also. And so that's more of the situation I'm trying to overcome, which I know is not necessarily this discussion topic. But just focusing on the culture minority situation, I do think being in a classroom where I am an African American teacher and working with students who, where the majority of my classroom is not of the African American race, it's never been an issue because I think that the way society is set up at this time is we are kind of catered to work towards the Caucasian, I guess, in a sense, aspect of learning. However, I went to a majority white school, so I can't necessarily speak on how it should definitely be as far as how different minorities should learn. But I know on a discipline aspect, which I do think is a very important part of learning, is that there has to be discipline, there has to be rules, there has to be that comfort level in the classroom. And I do think that that's a lot of times where the disconnect kind of comes as far as the differences between students. And there was an article that I read that discussed how, you know, a I think it was talking about a young African American boy who got rowdy in the classroom, where the teacher took it as being rowdy, whereas for that student, that's just how his family was at all times. Very loud, joking, and things of that sort. And that's more of a cultural, racial kind of thing where um, if there was more grace, that student maybe wouldn't have felt as if he was always being called out in class. And I think that's sometimes where that disconnect comes. So that's kind of my situation right now. It's just trying to make sure that I don't necessarily try to, oh, I didn't mention this, I'm thinking about, I didn't mention it. I also think that, just being completely honest, I do have a tendency to push minority students harder, just because not that it's anybody's fault, but in society, as a minority, you do have a tendency to have to work harder. And it's not in one of those, oh, I think that the world isn't fair, but it's just, as a black woman, I already come with stereotypes. People already look at me and think that I'm from the hood, or that I have an attitude, or I'm emotional, or there's already things that come with that I'm already having to overcome before someone even learns my name. And so I have a tendency to push my students who are minorities, excuse me, harder, because I know that there's other things that have to overcome beyond just learning the material. And so I think something for myself is I want to make sure I push everybody equally, because it's not fair for me to push one student harder than it is for me to push somebody who's not minority as hard, because I have a very strong belief that you should have high expectations of everyone. And though I never realized it, so I really self-evaluated myself for this project, that I do think I have a tendency to do that at times. So that's something I'm going to work on. Hold on one second for the next question. Um, so for me, the ideal situation would to be have a maybe in a sense a staff that matched the diversity level. And of course, that's something that's, again, it's ideal, it's wishful thinking. But there are, in my personal school, there, like I said, it is, I would say, 60% white and then 40% minorities. But I would say there are a lot of African American females of the minority group. There's a lot of African American females, but there's not a lot of African American teachers. And I think, I do believe strongly that um, people need role models, and having someone that you can look at and really be able to think that can be me. It does help push people to, it does help students strive to be better and strive to do more because they know somebody before them did do that. And I definitely think any teacher can inspire anyone. I know the teachers who inspired me to be math teachers were both white women. So I definitely don't think that you have to have a someone who looks just like you to inspire you, but somebody to necessarily that you want to, that you motivate yourself to try to be, or try to push yourself to continuously try to strive to be like that person. Sometimes, as for a young mind, for a young high schooler or middle schooler, that might help. So I think having more diverse teachers um, would definitely help that aspect. As well as for my personal school, for example, we had a student who speaks no English, only speaks Spanish, and we only have one teacher in the whole school that speaks Spanish. And so, and she's trying to teach her Spanish class. So what do you do when you're in math and nobody speaks the language? And I'm sure if I'm having trouble in the math class, it's no different in the English class or the social studies class or like any of these other classes. But when there's nobody else in the school that he can go to and who can help translate or do anything, and so I try to like modify my lessons so that I kind of have a small little word bank to kind of help him so he can kind of at least somewhat get through the lessons. But I just wish there was more diversity on in the school to help make it easier for the students, so the students feel comfortable, they feel welcome, they feel like that they are included in the school and not just an added speckle, added sprinkle. So